Hi friends, I thought I'd read you a story today. If in the end there was only one of you that liked this story, then it was well worth my time to read you the story. But this is one that I just really love, and I thought if I loved it, you guys would like it too. It's called Hattie's Garden and How It Grew, and this was written by Hattie Fields. We're going to begin now. I knew how these old people felt. They had worked in gardens almost all of their lives, raising fresh vegetables and greens, but now they were too old or too sick to grow anything for themselves. Most of them didn't have a place to make a garden anyway, and they were too poor to buy what they needed at the store. A lot of them were just going hungry. Working with a community help program, I would go to their homes carrying food for them, and they would say, "Hattie, have you got any vegetables that you can spare?" Or, "Oh, if you could just bring me a bunch of turnip greens." I had been a farm worker myself for 20 years, and I knew something about raising crops, but I couldn't see any way to help these poor people. Farmland is expensive around the Florida Everglades, and nobody I knew of was going to just up and hand over a piece of his farm for nothing. When I would pray, I would often mention the problem to the Lord. "Lord," I said one time, "I don't think I could find somebody to give even your angels some land to raise something for free." Right then a little voice whispered back, "Didn't I say that if you walk upright, I would give you your heart's desire?" I wasn't sure that I was hearing anything but my own heart talking, but it got me thinking. And one day I was driving by the Glades Correctional Institution, a prison farm near Belle Glade, and I noticed a piece of black, mucky ground alongside a ditch. It didn't look like it was being used, so I decided I'd go see the prison's farm superintendent about it. When I got up to the main building, I just went in and told the man at the desk that I wanted to see the superintendent. "You have to see him by appointment," he told me. "Well, just give me an appointment," I said, and believe it or not, he did. So the day came for the appointment, and I went back out there. I was taken right into the superintendent's office. He seemed like a nice man, and when I told him I'd like to use that patch of land, he said, "What do you want those 13 acres for?" I hadn't known it was that much land. "1 acre will be enough," I told him. "Even the ditch bank will do. All I want to do is try to raise some fresh food for these old people that are on fixed incomes, and the ones that can't hoe and make a garden for themselves." "You mean to tell me you want to make a garden?" he said, looking at me like he didn't think an old lady like me could ever do such a thing. "I want to try," I told him. "I've got to write the state to get approval," he said, "but if they say it's okay for you to have an acre to work on, it's okay with me too." I thanked him really sincerely and went out of there rejoicing, but still wondering if it could be so. Well, I wasn't going to leave it entirely up to the state officials, so I called my praying band together. A little group we get together to tell God what we need, and the band started telling the Lord about the land. A few weeks later, the superintendent called me and said, "I want you to meet with me." So I went out to the prison farm again, and when I went in to see him, the superintendent said, "Mrs. Fields, I got you the whole 13 acres. The state said okay." I thought I'd faint, but I gave the superintendent a big smile and said, "Okay, thank you, sir." Then I began to think of how I was going to work that land. I didn't have a tractor, a hoe, or anything else. "I'm going to need a tractor to disc the land with," I told the superintendent. "Well, that's one thing I can't help you with," he told me. "The regulations just don't allow for that." I had the land, but what could I do with it now that I had it? "Oh God," I prayed, "please help me. Help me think." Well, there is a government assistance program called Manpower that helps poor people find jobs. So I went over there and talked to the director. I'm going to need somebody to help me grow the old people's garden, I said. It would be a chance to help some men help themselves. I gave the manpower people the information they wanted, and the director told me, well, we'll see what we can do. On the morning that we were to get started preparing the ground, I went out to the prison farm and waited for whomever the manpower people would send me. 9 men showed up, and I thanked the Lord. When I told the 9 workers what we were going to do, one of them said to me, "Okay, lady, where's the tractor?" "Oh, Lord, honey," I said, trying to make them understand how hard they were going to have to work. "We don't have a tractor. We only got 6 hoes. That's all I've been able to borrow." "You think we can make a farm with 6 hoes?" he said. I told him, "Well, we're going to try it. I knew the Lord had provided for us so far. I just had to have the faith to believe He would keep it up." It was the summertime then, and that old Everglades sun was beating down on us out there. I wasn't sure anything would grow in that heat. It just seemed like it would burn up anything we planted. But we went to work, planting the seeds that the county had given us. We beat that ground with our hoes. We dug, we planted. We beat, we dug, we planted. After a while, something green started coming up. As it grew more and more, we could see that it was something we hadn't planted. What? It was a long, silky-looking grass that I had never seen before. I knew that strange grass would just choke out our little vegetable plants if they ever came up, so we started attacking that grass with our hoes, trying to chop it out. But the more we fought it, the more it grew. It just kept coming up. "Lord," I said, "now I'm going to waste all those seeds that the county gave me. The manpower people are going to come out here to see what we're doing with their money, and they're not going to see a thing but this good-for-nothing grass. I don't know what else to do, Lord." Then I went over to the men, standing there with the muddy hose in their hands, sweat pouring off of their faces in that hot sun. "We're just going to have to give it up and let the grass grow," I told them. "Let's just hoe around the ditch bank and let the people know that we're still out here trying to do the garden." The men were shaking their heads, starting to move over to the ditch bank. Then I said, "Wait, we ain't done all we can do. We're going to join hands and we're going to pray." They looked at me like I was crazy, but they linked their big rough hands and we prayed. "Lord," I said, "bless this crop. We are your people, Lord. Let the crop come up. Bring it up, Lord. Bring it up now." Well, that grass kept growing. It grew so high it started to bend over, and it would blow around in the air like strands of silk, the prettiest and strangest grass that I had ever seen. And we kept working around that ditch bank, cleaning out around there so we could plant some more, and letting the prison farm superintendent know we were still out there working. After about a month, while I was there at the ditch bank with the men, a voice whispered to me and said, "Why don't you walk over there and see if that strange grass has died?" I thought maybe the sun was getting to me to be hearing voices like that, but the urge was so strong that I just had to go do it. And when I started heading that way, the men asked me, "Well, where are you going?" "I'm going across the field to look at that strange grass," I told them. "For God's sake," one of them said, "don't put us back in that stuff." "Well, just stay where you are," I told him, and I walked on across the field. When I got over there, I could see the grass was taller than ever, but it had bent down like an umbrella over the rows, so thick you could hardly see down through it. As I walked through it, I looked down, and there in the rows, shaded by the grass, were the biggest, prettiest turnip greens you ever saw. The sun was high in the sky, and I wiped the sweat from my face, and I said to myself, "I knew it was too hot in this sun. I'm seeing what I can't believe I'm seeing." I wiped my eyes again and looked again. Yes, that's what they were. The prettiest greens I ever saw. I called out to the men, "Put your hose down and come running." "What do you see?" they yelled back. "A snake?" "No, I don't see a snake," I shouted. "Just come running." They came jumping and running over, and when they got close, I said, "Just look under there," pointing down to the strange grass. They pulled the grass back and saw those big, pretty greens for themselves. "This ain't ever been in history before that the crop grew under the grass," one of them said. "But it's in history now," I said. "You can see it. The Lord has suffered it to be so. He caused it to grow so it could protect our crop for the old people." Then the men began to rejoice and thank God, and I was praying, "Thank you, Lord, thank you." We began to pull the greens and carry them out to the truck. We started distributing them among the poor every day, and the more we distributed, the more grew under that grass. One of the farmers from around Bell Glades saw the turnip and the mustard greens we were carrying out to the poor families. "Where are you all getting such pretty greens shipped from this time of year?" he asked me. "Just come and see," I told him. When he came out to our garden, he couldn't believe what he saw. "Where did you get this grass to hide your crop?" he wanted to know. "It came directly from God," I said. After the Lord gave us such a crop of greens, more than the 300 poor families we were giving them to could eat, we started planting other vegetables. We planted okra, squash, corn, hot peppers, bell peppers, collard greens, lima beans, and God made it all grow for us. It was just beautiful. Some families began working special little plots in the 13 acres, and the 9 men kept on gardening the rest, giving the vegetables to the sick and the blind and the other handicapped and old people who couldn't do field work for themselves. That all happened in 1973, and we have made many a crop since then, but that grass never did come up again. When I tell people how the Lord did that miracle for the people who would share in our garden, they don't know what to make of my story or how the Lord took care of us. One woman said to me, "Well, that's sure a beautiful philosophy." "It's not a philosophy," I said. "It's a real thing. God is real. He did it, and you can believe it." From Hattie Fields. I hope you guys liked that story. It was a very encouraging story. Sometimes when we think that we're at the worst and there's no help for us, wow, but doesn't God give us a wonderful miracle? I love that story, and I hope that encouraged you and gave you a good feeling of the Lord's goodness. Well, I'll let you go now. We're at just a little over 13 minutes. I want to tell you, friends, that I love you like always, and keep looking up, keep looking in the clouds for our Savior. It's not far until He's coming back for us. Love you, friends. Bye now.